And we are live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get to recap tonight's matchup of the Detroit Pistons versus the Toronto Raptors, I want to make sure to remind you guys to click the link in our YouTube bio that shoots you right to grindclothingco.com, where you can check out all of our merch designs so that you can rep your favorite Detroit Pistons podcast, Revved Up 906. Usually I have a couple things that I want to remind you guys about, but I want to get right into the recap tonight because tonight's final score, 129 to 127. And I haven't said this in a while, in the Detroit Pistons' favor. Me and Ryan tonight, I'm wearing my honorary buffs, but Ryan's going to be wearing his buffs. And every Detroit Pistons win, we get buffed up. And it feels great to get them back on the pod. It's been a hot minute, 2 months to be exact. So it's nice to get the buffs back on. But Ryan, when talking about tonight's game, it was evident that the Pistons got some big time stops in order to close this win. But the biggest thing that jumps out at the box score is Cade Cunningham's 0 turnovers. Cade is playing at a high level right now, and the fact that he was able to protect the ball the way he did, something that he struggles with typically, it was great to see. And we saw him finish with 30 points, 12 assists, 9 of 20 shooting, and 0 turnovers. Ryan, what are some of the biggest standouts when watching Cade's game tonight against the Raptors?
So in previous matchups, we'd see a Cade Cunningham that's turning the ball over more. So someone who's effective with the three-point shot, who is hitting a high amount of shots. Last time out against Boston, 41 points, I believe. So we're seeing a Cade Cunningham in which he is scoring the ball left and right. He's not necessarily been looking for others as much as he normally does, because in those situations, he's been needing to be the guy to take over and control the game. He's been needing to step up more lately than not. But throughout all those games, him having a high career high in points, him scoring as much as he did, he also came to the conclusion that I need to look for others and not turn the ball over, because that's been one of the biggest negatives about his play as of lately is the turnovers. And by just looking to make smarter passes, he's cleaned that up. Evident tonight, first Pistons since it was at that time Blake Griffin with 20 plus points and what it was a stat line tonight. And then he hit the 30 mark, which last Piston was Chauncey Billups. So it shows you how good he has been lately. And if he were to keep this up and not turning the ball over as much as he has been, like if he played like he did tonight on a consistent basis, this team is winning games. And that's the bottom line. When he is as effective as he is and allows others to be as effective as they were tonight, good things will happen.
Well, and something that's one of the most inconsistent things for the Detroit Pistons this season is the supporting cast around Cade Cunningham. But right now in this matchup against the Toronto Raptors, I think one of the biggest reasons they got this win is because the supporting cast of Cade's really showed up tonight. And one of those guys that were kind of the unsung heroes was Kevin Knox, who started tonight and got 30 minutes. He finished with 17 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 7 of 14 shooting from the field. So 50% through 30 minutes of play. And then also had a steal and a block. Kevin Knox was very active, and you saw him be very aggressive, not just on the offensive end, but also defensively, getting that one steal and 1 block. That's really impressive for Kevin Knox. He's somebody that with his first stint with the Detroit Pistons, we were kind of like, okay, he might have an opportunity here to succeed. And then he leaves in free agency, goes to the Portland Trailblazers, gets cut, and then now he's got an opportunity with the Pistons again. And he's really starting to show up. And it seems like Monty Williams is really a fan of this guy because Monty could easily put Bojan at the 4, or you could stretch it and maybe go Asar Thompson. So it's proven that, Monty sees something in Kevin Knox, and it's paying off in a game like tonight.
Yeah, I said it in the beginning when we first landed him in free agency last year. I was sitting there going like, this could be something. Because there was a reason why he was the 9th overall pick in 2018 with the Knicks. In his freshman, only one season, one and done at Kentucky, averaged 15 plus points a game, shot efficiently from the field, shooting above 45%, above 70% at the free throw line. Like, he can play. He proved that in college, got drafted. The Knicks didn't really ever utilize him to the potential that he could have been used as. Then gets shipped off to Atlanta. Atlanta doesn't use him the way they should have used him. He signs with us. We saw flashes at times with the Dwayne Casey offense where he was a player in which you saw multiple different flashes from time to time, but then gets moved, a part of the Sadiq Bey trade, then ends up in Portland in another trade after that, finishes out the season hot, and then here we are with an open roster spot. Weaver takes a chance on him again, and he's proven to be successful. One of my biggest takeaways from tonight is, and I've said this from the beginning, I think he has a place on this team.
Yeah.
And when you look at the potential of a trade, just surrounding the Pistons in general, I think you leave Kevin Knox off that list. And I know that's bold for me to say, just because that means I'd be saying, go ahead, trade away Stewart, trade away all these other guys, and keep Kevin Knox. That's not necessarily what I'm saying. I'd love to keep Stu. I would love to keep a lot of those guys. But at the end of the day, it is a business. And Kevin Knox, time and time again, early on in this season, since arriving in Detroit, with a couple games in, he's proven to be an impactful player. And tonight was evident. I mean, when you only missed 7 shots on the night, he was efficient, 3 of 8 for 3. In clutch situations, he was that go-to guy. And the fact of his height and length and what he can do, like that post around Pirtle, like that was pretty fantastic. I'm very excited to see what Kevin Knox does come the next couple games or so, because I think we're only scratching the surface on what he could be.
Another Detroit Piston that we have to highlight tonight is Jalen Duren. He was an absolute stat sheet stuffer tonight against the Raptors. His final stat line in 34 minutes was 18 points, 17 rebounds. Yes, 17. And then shot 6 of 11 from the field. And then defensively got not too much defensively tonight, but only 1 turnover. So that was great to see. Jalen Duren was an impressive sight to see tonight against a very solid, huge big man in Jakob Poeltl. It was great to see him kind of dominate the paint the way we know he can. We just haven't seen him do it super consistent, but tonight Jalen Duren did not disappoint and was a key factor in why the Detroit Pistons were able to compete with the Raptors through all 4 quarters. This game was neck and neck the whole time, and Jalen Duren was getting these key, very opportune rebounds when the Detroit Pistons needed it the most. And I loved his play tonight. Exactly what we need from Jalen Duren.
Yeah, against Boston the other night, that was a game in which he should have been much more effective on the glass, and he wasn't. Ever since he came back from that left ankle sprain that he suffered more recently, he hasn't necessarily been hitting the glass as hard. I think he's just a little bit, because once you get injured, it's a natural instinct for anybody in general that you're afraid to kind of go as hard as you were going, because you're afraid that, oh, the chances of that actually happening again are pretty high. Even more so now than ever, because you've actually injured that before. So I think he's just starting to get back into the rhythm of things. But this is a team in which, for Toronto, you can easily hit the glass hard. That's no disrespect to Spicy P, aka Pascal Siakam, because he's a great player. He's one of those underdog big men in the league, but can hit the glass hard at times too. Jakob Poeltl is a very solid center, very solid when he was with San Antonio. Now here in Toronto, he's just one of those go-to big men that are always going to get boards, and their stat lines are going to be pretty darn impressive. But during tonight, the 17 rebounds is a big exclamation point on the fact of how efficient he can be when we win games. When we win games, he's hitting the board. Like he's hitting the glass left and right. He's very effective in that area. He's effective on defense. It may not show up in the box score, the steals or the blocks, but his presence alone is evident, especially in wins. And I was very pleased with his game tonight.
Yeah, Jalen Duren really just consistent through all 4 quarters, which is great to see for the Pistons young big man. One big thing that was a negative for the Detroit Pistons tonight, that, you know, this game was neck and neck throughout all 4 quarters. And the biggest reason is because Dennis Schroeder and Pascal Siakam combined for 65 points. And Dennis Schroeder was like the silent killer because he didn't get a fancy 30 points like Pascal Siakam did. You know, Pascal just like every time he makes a bucket, it just like stings. Like he just is such a dangerous scorer. But Dennis Schroeder was the silent killer tonight with 30 points and 9 assists, really controlling the offense with ease. And then 11 of 18 from the field and going 3 of 6 from the 3-point line. And you know, Cade is playing at a high level right now, but he really is getting exposed by other point guards on the defensive end. I really want to see Cade, now that we know that he's elite on the offensive end. Now let's see how he can pull it together defensively, because that's going to be crucial for the Detroit Pistons. And then another guy that really hurt the Pistons at times and really helped the Raptors make a nice big comeback after going down 11 points midway through the 4th quarter was Gary Trent Jr. We saw him in 39 minutes, played nearly the whole flipping game, and then scored 24 points, 8 of 16 from the field. And then this is the big killer, 6 of 9 from the 3-point line. It's staying true that even when the Pistons, you know, get these wins, opposing teams' guards are putting up big numbers. Hopefully, eventually, soon here, the Pistons are going to be able to start figuring some of that stuff out. Now that we finally got that next win, and they can kind of feel like a weight is off their shoulders a bit, because hopefully the Pistons will be getting some national exposure in a positive light, unlike what it has been in the last 2 months. But Ryan, the guards of the Toronto Raptors really burning us tonight. It was mostly from the 3-point line, it seemed.
Yeah, we really closed off the paint there at times, just because, like I mentioned, the presence of Duren, having him there as an anchor, as a centerpiece for our team, it's kind of hard to find a shot in the paint. And then even the play of Kevin Knox too. That was a very big role in how effective we were protecting the paint tonight. But the guards, yeah, like you mentioned, Gary Trent Jr. had a great game. Dennis Schroeder had a great game. But then even like you had Pascal Siakam, like we mentioned, and then Scotty Barnes still had a solid night after starting the game 0 for 4 from the field. It's just, when you look at the Raptors, obviously the trade of OG Anunoby happened today. Unfortunately, we didn't get him, but we still ended up with a win, so that's good. But without him tonight, I believe they also had Precious Achiuwa in that trade, and then Malachi Flynn, which that depletes the Raptors bench. So realistically, they didn't have much bench play. I mean, when you have Otto Porter coming off your bench, you're pretty darn solid for a bench unit. But no, like Gary Trent Jr., historically speaking, especially most notably in his time in Portland, he was one of those guys that he seemed like a role player at times, and he'd hit opportune shots at the right moments. But he is a clutch player. That's who he is. He's one of those players in the league that can hit the 3-point shot consistently on a regular basis, day in, day out. If you're contesting him, he's still going to shoot that and hit it right in your face. So the fact that he was as effective, and Dennis Schroeder, who's a very savvy vet, very smart with the ball, can easily control an offense whenever he wants to. The fact when you have those two guys going off the way they did, it really hurts. If we eliminate the guard play, like you had Zach LaVine, the 51-point night, Little Caesars Arena, like it's another example of like if we defensively step it up with our guards and defend those guys to a higher standard than we have been, like realistically, we could be winning these games a lot more frequently, and then not even so this 2-point game at the end. Like if we eliminate or step up rather on defense with Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, I think we could be solid there. Because you look at historic Pistons like Lindsey Hunter, great guard, great on defense. Chauncey Billups, phenomenal on defense. They knew how to step it up at right times. And I think Cade is starting to figure that out a little bit. Ivy is starting to figure that out a little bit. But in order for us to take that next jump as a unit with those guys out there starting left every night, I think we need to set our guard defense, perimeter defense up to a higher standard than it is.
One thing too, when looking at the box score is, and this is props to the Pistons, is the Raptors bench only contributed for 12 points. I mean, that is a crucial statistic because when there is a guy on the opposing team's roster that scores in the teens, that can be a silent killer for a team when you have that coming off the bench. And the Pistons actually had that coming off the bench tonight. I was very happy with Alec Burks's play, finishing with 16 points in only 18 minutes, and then 4 of 6 from the field and 3 of 3 from the 3-point line. This is the Alec Burks that we had last season that we haven't had in this first stretch of the season this year. So hopefully this is a sign that Alec Burks is working through his shooting issues, because if he figures out his offensive struggles and starts pulling it together, this Pistons team looks a lot different when you don't have the offensive drought coming off the bench like we have had in these last 2 months.
Yeah, at the start of the season, we had one of the best scoring benches in the league. And then through 2 months later, on the win streak that we were on, not anymore, thankfully, but on the losing streak we were on, we weren't experiencing the best bench play. Every player out there goes through a shooting slump from time to time. And it happens to shooters more often than not. Alec Burks is a shooter. And so the fact that he was as hot as he has been the last year or so, and then going into this season, it's about time. This is like the perfect timing for a shooting slump for me personally, because if he's starting the way he had tonight and he goes on a tear the next couple months, like no complaints here at all, because at the end of the day, that means wins. And I'm not saying that individually him alone is going to win us games, but the play tonight, it was as effective, if not, like he was a big part in us winning this game tonight. And honestly, the overall of our bench, even though outside of him and his 16 points, he had James Wiseman with 8. Asar Thompson had 6. Livers had the 3. But like the play out of Wiseman, Thompson, and Burks alone tonight on defense were a big contributor to us winning the game outside of our normal guys. But yeah, Alec Burks played phenomenal tonight. This is what I want to see from him going forward. And I think his shooting slump is over with. I think this is going to continue on.
Yeah, I sure hope so, because the Pistons are that much better when Alec Burks is scoring at all 3 levels. He adds a dynamic to the Pistons that is just so crucial. That will do it for tonight's recap of the Detroit Pistons versus the Toronto Raptors. A nice win to end that 28-game drought. Tonight's final score was 127-129, and the Pistons had the up in this score tonight. Make sure to like and subscribe if you are new to the channel. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys Monday night. Peace.